This happened, Alex, and as I hit the floor, and I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And as I got up, I felt different, and I looked for that blade, and that blade wasn't there. And there was nobody there, because nobody could have pushed me from behind, because my back was against the wall.
Against the wall, yeah.
And I had that realization, and that's where I got that phrase, right, from now on, I never, when we talk about fight or flight, I never fly again. From now on, everything I do, I will fight, and I will fight for the underdog. And I'm going to start with my mother, protecting her. So I ran back home, and the beast just laid into me. Where have you been? Blah, 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 blah. And I just stared at him.
Yeah.
And every time he kept knocking me down, my mother, obviously, then she's getting a beating as well. And it was just, this was the chaos that prevailed daily.
Yeah.
And there was a quietness. There was no emotion from me, Alex, other than to just get back up and just keep staring straight through him.
Yeah.
And I can remember. It's funny. I've got no energy attached to these things anymore, because I've let it go. But as I recall, and that was 74, that was 14. That was 46 years ago.
Oh, wow!
And recall it like that, but there's no emotion attached to it anymore. It's a story.
It's a story. Yeah. Wow.
A true one. But what happened was, I just muttered to him, one day soon, I'm going to kill you. One day soon, I'm going to kill you. That is a promise.
Wow.
It was so cold and so matter of fact. And I knew that there was a turning point there. I knew. Because I don't know if you've ever experienced this in your own life, Alex, or people can relate. When you look a bully straight in the eye, I can tell within a split second that person has lost that control. It might be just a little drop of the eye, but it's something when you look into their eyes with your own, and it's about you regaining that control that says, I choose not to give you any more power over me.
Power, yeah.
And that's what happened. I didn't know any of this at the time. But that's what happened. It was actually 14 years later when the attempt took place. 14 years, and by that time I'd kind of built myself up, knocked myself down. My life had become a polarized black and white. I'm in the gutter. I've just lost my job because I've been on a wild bender, or I've hit somebody, or been in a fight, or whatever it is. It was deliberate. This is what I know. I build things up to sabotage them. Then I show my strength to build them up again. And then I sabotage them, self-destruct. But what I learned, Alex, was in those white phases, right, it's almost in boxing terms, you've got one punch, make it count. And boy, did I make that count, because I would throw myself into charitable work, serving others. Talk about the extremes of both.
Yeah.
There was never, ever any grey level area in the middle, never.
Wow.
And it was quite the moment I left that, because I went to then Lowe at 14 after this had all kicked off. There was about a week later, and there was an incident at school, and it was a humorous one, and it was one of the very, very few occasions that I'd gone to school, and I was Forest mad. And there was an Irish international called Tommy Jackson that played number 11 for Forest at the time. I'm going back to the 70s now. All the teachers, and this is a very prim and proper old school, and a proper old school traditional grammar school, Victorian principles. If a master walked down the corridor, you have to bow your head. You didn't make eye contact. You had the traditional uniform, the school played rugby, and all this very traditional stuff. I had no respect for authority, because I'd seen how it had failed. It had failed my mother, it had failed me. So I thought, this is a jungle. The only way you survive is you take this in your own hands and you sort it out. No respect whatsoever for authority. I'm in this class, this one particular, which was like I say, unique experience. It was an RE class, and there was an old war hero called Mr. Hamer, little fella, lovely old boy he was. Anyway, we're in there, and the deputy head, it was like 5 to 3, 5 minutes to the bell going for close of school, and a knock come on the door. And the deputy head came, and he said, Mr. Hamer, and they addressed each other as Sir. Sir, I've come to pick up Lowe for detention. You must be mistaken, sir. There's nobody in this class called Lowe. And it's an old voice, and he said, look around. Yes, there is, sir. That's the boy there, pointing at me. No, sir, you're mistaken. That's not Lowe. That's Jackson. Tommy Jackson, sir, is his name. Well, Alex, this had gone on for 3 years, by the way. Every master in every subject thought my name was Tommy Jackson, not Paul Lowe. That was kind of, I suppose, the creativity, maybe escapism, coming out saying, I'm creating so many different identities like a chameleon to survive.
Yeah. Wow.
Because the reality was I'd lost my own true identity.
Yeah.
And to say the proverbial, hit the fan. Anyway, I got home late an hour later than normal, because I used to be timed. I used to have 7 minutes from getting to school to running home, and the clock used to be on. And if I was 5 seconds late, that was extra punishment. But by this time, Alex, it didn't matter. Just throw at me what you want. I don't care.
Yeah, I think.
So that was kind of the early stages, really, that set the tone for latter years of what I called, as I say, in my Emerging from the Forest book, and the pun on words, emerging from the forest, my attachment to Nottingham Forest, because I emerged from that, because what I learned out of that, and the learning I took out of, albeit decades later, Alex, was I gave my power away to a football club. They had control over me. If they won, my life was great. If they lost, my life was bad. There's a big lesson there. So I emerged from the forest, and that, I suppose, was one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life. Don't claim your power back.
All right. Wow, that's such an amazing story, Paul. I mean, even me listening to that is just sends chills around the challenge that you've had to go through as a young boy. I mean, and still be there standing is such an incredible story. And in a way, how we talk about change, how we effect change, and how it comes in 3 parts, either through chance, choice, and crisis. And you are in this crisis, and you managed to somehow get through it. But I mean, one question that comes to to mind is that obviously it's an incredible story of a challenge that you went through, but when you fast forward through all the lessons, you somehow emerged successful to a big way. Now, is this because a lot of the successful people I talk to, like on this podcast in the North circles, most of their stories tends to be characterized by some sort of significant challenge that they've gone through. Do you think this, in a way, is a characteristic or a prerequisite of people to emerge successful, to have gone through some sort of big crisis of challenge of some sort? Is that what it takes, or is that just part of life? Because a lot of people who are just coasting through life, just managing, to some extent, most of them haven't gone through significant challenge, certainly not the extent that you would have gone through. What are your thoughts around that, for people to emerge successful? Is there an element of some significant challenge that is involved in that process? What would be your thoughts on that?
I think that's a phenomenal question, Alex. It really is a phenomenal question. And I don't think with any story there's a nice, convenient, one-size-fits-all answer. And that's not a get out of jail statement. But what I will say is, I think, when we look at our life story that's, and I'm going to be maybe even slightly controversial, pre-scripted for us, we are called to serve.
Yeah.
And that conditioning that I went through and many others have gone through far worse is exactly that. Because to use the metaphor of a beautiful flower grows out of dark, earthy soil.
Yeah.
But when the moment's right, that flower will appear and, you know, create beauty in the world. Now, I'm not being self-praising and saying that is, you know, attributing that sort of metaphoric bouquet to myself. But I'm answering your question, hopefully in a more generic sense, to say that galvanization that goes with adversity is that. Because how can you then reach out with authenticity, with empathy to people that are struggling in whatever struggling or suffering means when you've not been there, you've not experienced that desperation, that I've had enough, I can't cope anymore, I want to end this. But to then have the faith to know that there's something very, 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 very special, that against all the odds, when your head's saying to you, no, I've had enough, your heart's saying, no, you haven't, boy. No, you haven't. I'll tell you, it's almost like, this might sound really kind of woo-woo, but there's that higher self within you that's saying, that spirit, come on, you're going to be okay. This is tough now, but do not give in. Because do you know what? I'm not going to let you give in. Yeah. And that's happened to me. I recall an incident, there's been many. You know, when I look at some of the inverted commas scrapes I've been in my life, I shouldn't be here, I should be dead. Right. And you can call it a garden angel, you can call it what you want, Alex, but there is something, Gabby Bernstein wrote a book, The Universe Has Your Back. And I absolutely know that from my whole life experiences to be true. Yeah. Because with what's happened in my own journey, my own story defies logic. It's not logical. You can create some fantasy out of it. Yeah. You know, and I do start my stories now, my work with clients, my mentoring work with clients. Once upon a time in a far off land lived a client. He or she, and we create this story. Tell me about your story now. Yeah. And then we introduce that. And we don't like that page. What if that dark page of desperation was written in a different way? In a different way, yeah. And we go on this voyage of discovery, because the reality is, Alex, is it not, that all we've got is here and now. The stuff that we keep hold of from the past, it's like keeping an old film. Or an old video. It's like keeping an old Betamax video. Yeah, again, I'm showing my age now. Betamax video, blimey. Film in the drawer. Can you remember that? Well, no, we haven't got anything to play that anymore. Betamax video. Or VHS. But that's what we do, isn't it? We keep hold of those tapes. Yeah, absolutely. You know, just in case, because that caused me a lot of pain. So I'll keep that tape because there might be some good clues how to avoid it next time. Yeah. No, there ain't. No, there ain't. Take the learning from it and move on. I remember when I spoke to a guy who was one of my mentors, a guy called Jim Britt. Jim Britt was also mentor to Tony Robbins. And Jim and I was having a conversation one day, you know, about this, that, and the other. And I said, "Oh, Jim," and I thought I was being kind of, you know, quite clever about this. I said, "The most important words in the world, the three most important words. Everybody in the world at some time or other has got to have uttered these three immortal words. Yeah. I love you." And like the wily old sage that he was, stroke is, he just, in calmness, shook his head anyway. What are you shaking your head for, Jim? What do you mean? No, they're not the three most important words, Paul. What are they then? What are they, Jim? And have you ever noticed with kind of really high-level mentors, I've had this a few times in my life where it's been shown to me, they don't let you out of jail quickly. They keep you hanging. What's the NLP term? Anchoring. They keep you hooked in there. And I saw this in California once with Deepak Chopra as well, where, you know, an answer wouldn't be given. And the ego wants, put me out, come on, give me the answer, Alex, tell me. It's like, no. What do you think? Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. What, tell me. Jim did this to me, and I'm getting very frustrated. It's like, Jim, please tell me. And he said, the 3 most important words in the world. And it seemed like a lifetime before he told me, probably 2 minutes, if that. Let it go.